Greetings and salutations. Second Star right here with more Raid Shadow Legends. And on the screen here we have Hatchet Slinger, the rare dwarf attack champion, who I keep getting in the comments. I had a subscriber saying, hey, you should probably look at Hatchet Slinger. And I'm like, yeah, I should totally do that. Then a couple weeks later, hey, have you looked at Hatchet Slinger yet? And I'm like, no, I have not. I should totally do that. And then, well, finally I did. You know, what's the point in reading comments if I'm not going to listen to them, right? So I did look at Hatchet Slinger and said, oh, it has some potential. It's interesting. Let's see what this guy can do. All right, so let's look at Hatchet Slinger's skill set here. And the attraction here is he's a rare. In Dwarven faction, that's important because the dwarves, for whatever reason, probably because they're new and readily monetizable, they require a lot of books. So this guy only requires rare books, but he's a dwarf, so he needs a lot. So let's look into what he does. His Axe Frenzy is his A1. Attacks the enemy twice. 80% chance of ignoring 15% of the target's defense if this champion has 50% hit points or higher. The 10% chance of placing a stun for one turn if the champion has less than 50% hit points. So there's an if in either or, okay? Over 50%, you can ignore damage. Under 50%, maybe you can land a stun, okay? And those native percentages can be increased up to 100% for ignoring defense if you fully book them out, which is kind of cool. And then I think, what is it, 30, what was it, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30% for the stun. So the stun's still low, but ignoring the defense 100% on an A1, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. And of course that stacks with, if you're going to 6-star them, it stacks with the Mastery, the Helm Smasher, and it stacks with, whatever gear you have. So before we get to the next skill, you can see right away that I went all out and just stacked him in cruel gear to ignore 15% of damage, 50% of defense. So there we go. I'm trying to max out his potential even more. His Dwarven Fortitude places an unkillable buff on the champion for 2 turns, which is really cool because there are not very many rares that have the unkillable. Now, unfortunately, he's not quite at Gnarlhorn level, which I get into a bit later, but still having it unkillable on A2, that's interesting. It's a 4-turn native cooldown. That's not true. It's a 7-turn native cooldown. You can get down to 4 turns. Originally, it's 7 turns, but you can get it down to 4 turns. Okay, hatchets for all. Hatchets for everyone. Has a 5% chance of counterattacking when hit. Has a 25% chance of counterattacking when hit with a crit. And 3 books can increase those percentages to 5, 10, 15, 20%, or 25, 30, 35, 40% if you hit with a crit. Okay, so he has a built-in counterattack, built-in ignore defense, built-in unkillable. Because he's an attack champ, the unkillable isn't really as important as it is from Gnarlhorn, who's an HP champ, who also has an AoE provoke, defense on themselves, and does damage. The damage of his A1 increases as his hit points go down. So Gnarlhorn is like set up perfectly to take advantage of the unkillable, whereas Hatchet Slinger, it's cool that he has unkillable, but it's just an occasional mitigation rather than a staple part of his skill set. So it makes him much less of a champion than Gnarlhorn is, unfortunately. But still, it's interesting with his counterattack and his ignore defense. There's a couple different ways you can go about building this champion, right? You can either double down on his counterattack by putting him in like say retaliation gear, or you can double down on his ignoring defense like I did, which I thought was a better way to go with an attack champion. I'd compare him to say like Pitiless One. I did a guide on Pitiless One. They're similar in that they don't offer a lot of utility. They protect themselves a little bit, like Pitiless One heals, and Hatchet Slinger ignores defense, has unkillable. So they both have that all-out attack mentality while not adding a whole lot of utility to the team, right? Which just makes them very limited as champions, in my opinion. Even if they're fun, they might not necessarily add to the group dynamic that you're really looking for. Masteries, I just went down the tier 2s. Granted, his stun is low, but I still went with accuracy. If I was going to go down the tiers a bit more, I might actually go down the defense tree and get the other 2 counterattacks. And then you can really double down on counterattacks. You can then put them in. You can put them in a retaliation set. You can have the counterattacks, and you have all these different ways that you can counterattack when hit. or you can just take those counterattacks and still focus on ignoring defense. You can do a little bit of both. So he's versatile in the ways that he can put out damage, which is interesting. I mean, he's not a bad champion. Let's look at see how I have him built. Like I said, he's all in cruel. I totally went out with the ignoring defense. So every 2 sets, give me 5% of ignore defense. It's all 5-star gear. I only maxed out the stuff that was really going to help. So attack here, crit damage here on the gloves, hit points on the chest, and gotta stay alive. It's one of those things. Even if you guys unkillable, it's only every 4 turns. Shield only went up to 12 because, it's expensive with all the silver, and defense isn't going to help them all that much. Just rather put in champions that can heal them up. And then helmet, again, hit points only went up to 12 on this one. Speed only went to 12 in speed because it was really not that important. I mean, speed's always important, but as far as the purposes of showing what the champion can do, not that important. If I was actually going to use this champion, I'd probably max out the speed. I'd definitely max out the speed. Making sure that he's still below the buffers, of course. This is my only 6-star item, and I kept it at 12 because taking a cue from Hell Hades, like, let's pretend my 6-star gear is 5-star gear, right? So we'll pretend that that's 5 stars, as we'll pretend we're pushing dungeon content, right? So, and then his crit damage on his amulet, which is awesome. So that means his total stats are pretty the standard one. He has really low hit points, but I figured, run with Gorgorab on this thing, and then he has his occasional unkillable, that this would kind of mitigate a bit. So this is about 10,000 less than you'll see on the champions I usually build. I went much more offensive. Alright, so 2200 attack, speed's up 135, which is low. Crit rate's 83, but his crit damage is 167. Actually 76. Again, that only really is for the stun, and he's stunned so infrequently that I figured, I'm not gonna worry about that particular stat at this time. If I was going to use this champion, I'd probably try to maximize those stats more. Okay, so what do we have here? Of course, I'm going into Ice Golems because I love that dungeon. It's just more versatile than some of the other ones. All right, so first thing he does, as you see, is he puts up his Unkillable, which I think is, giving a lot more credit to his opponents than is necessary right away. I probably would have waited, but I'm not an AI programmer, obviously, so what do I know, right? All right, so his damage output is not bad. Now, he's not doing the big raw damage that, say, Halberdier does. Like, again, if I was just going for an offensive juggernaut to take into a rare that I was going to maximize, it would be Halberdier. He just does more. He does more damage naturally. It's just he's easier to build more damage as a rare. You're just sacrificing some of the damage for this guy's personal utility. Again, which I think has its place, I guess. But I just don't think that champions that don't have utility beyond themselves have a place in a dungeon team. I just don't, or any team really, unless it's Halberdier, who does so much damage that can make up for it. Halberdier is like kind of the rare version of like Knight Errant. He's someone who doesn't do a whole lot, but that one thing he does, dealing damage, he's really good at. And that's kind of how I feel about it. And sometimes, you just want to 6-star those champions. Like, I 6-starred my Pitiless one just because I found his attacks and attack animation so satisfying. Sometimes it's just something as simple as that kind of just makes you do things. But since this was a request, this wasn't something that I would have done. I probably would never even have leveled this champion. I do find him interesting. He does hold his own nicely. He's got his Unkillable up right now. Throughout this fight, I think it only saves him once. His Unkillable expired right before he got hit. Right, so right after he went, then he's dead. So I mean, it's with the 4-turn cooldown. It's a bit tougher to manage this guy. It's not like Gnarlhorn, where it's like a 3-turn cooldown that lasts for 2 turns. His Unkillable is up all the time. This guy, it's not the same. And it's kind of weird to have an Unkillable on an attack champion in that way. I don't know. He's a bit kludgy of his skill set, focusing much more on his counterattacks and his ignoring defense makes much more sense for the champion. It's kind of like his Unkillable it's just kind of there, right? Unless you're manualing, I think it might be kind of tough. Now, that said, if you are using this champion manual, and you can time when you want to put in the Unkillable, that could be great. You know, that could probably get you through a lot of sticky situations in a dungeon and your journey, you know, through the harder dungeon stages. He can definitely help out, right? I mean, if you're thinking of rare champions that have Unkillable, it's only Gnarlhorn, Paragon, and this guy. That's it, right? Gnarlhorn's probably the way to go if you're gonna take a rare and take them top tier. Gnarlhorn is definitely worth that investment. This guy, not so much. He's fun, but he does not have the necessary utility, I think, to really invest in, take him to 6 stars, and take him through all this content. I enjoyed putting him together. He does do a decent bit of damage. He did 362. He definitely topped everybody. We had, you know, out of Lord Chamfort Super Tank, Gorgorab, Speedy Reviver, Frozen Banshee, Poisons, and Synthalia, Heal Speed, and Cleanse. He's definitely designed for success on this team, but and everyone else is kind of middling built, and I haven't really focused on any of those other champions much. They're kind of my showcase champions when I want to do my level 50 stuff, and Hatchet Slinger held his own. He carried the damage through this stage, and this is stage 13. This is the farming stage, right? As you're going through your level 50s, you're going through your dungeons. This is the first one that has 6-star gear available, so you're going to spend a lot of time on this stage as you gather gear to gear up your champions to take on the harder levels of dungeons. You're going to be on stage 13s of all these dungeons all the time. And Hatchet Slinger can get you through there if you need a damage dealer, right? Again, he wouldn't be my first choice. It'd probably be, as far as rares go, I would choose Soulbound Boyer, and then I would choose, let's see, probably Coffin Smasher after that, and then Halberdier. I think those are probably my 3 favorite damage dealers as far as rares go. Hatchet Slinger, probably a tier below those ones. But he does do a good job, and the Unkillable's nice. The Retaliation's nice. Counterattacks are really cool. Ignoring damage is a really, really significant buff. And getting 100% on an A1, and being able to stack that with, you know, with gear, with masteries. If you take him down the various trees to get those other bonuses, he's a really, really good champion. Not great, but keeping it level 50 with all these ascensions and giving his bling, and, you know, he can do it. He can do the job. He wouldn't be my first choice for the job, but if this is what you have, this is what he can do, and it can probably be a big help for you. I'll just leave it at that. Not my favorite, but if you were curious about Hatchet Slinger and how he can perform, this is him in Cruel, with some decent gear, decently leveled. Alright, so I hope that satisfies your curiosity. It satisfied mine. I'm happy that I took him to 50, but he's probably going to stay there. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, throw me a like. Leave a comment below what you think. Maybe some other good rare damage dealers. I named those my 3 favorite ones off the top of my head, but maybe you have others, and I'd like to hear about it. That'd be cool. If there's a video you want to see, I could probably take care of that also. And if you enjoyed it, subscribe, because that'd be awesome. We can have a little dialogue going. You can know when my videos are coming out, and you can participate. I would appreciate it. Guys, take care, have fun, enjoy, and I will see you next time.